Anytime you like, my man. Anytime you like.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. We're live. Go on then, David.
All right, so Dana D on the Safe Network forum talks about a lot of people have an interest because they like following I guess you would say oh, sorry about that. Hold on. I gotta get this.
No problem. That's cool, man. Well, while David's doing that, is there anything else particular anyone wants to sort of bring up? Anything you're going to say, Daniel? Is there anything particularly you want to?
On the topic of minds.com, just a few hours ago, someone offered to invite me to their group on Facebook, and I was reluctant to join because I was thinking to myself, I don't really want to divulge that content to the spying analysis. You know what I mean? And it's so here was the point. It's a closed group, invite only, right? But how can it be invite only? Because anybody can be there. Because you can spy on it, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, if only there was the same feature with a safe network version, that would be a boon to society. You know what I mean? Like I was thinking, like Facebook owns all that content. It's a Facebook group. They could stop the group from communicating. So, I mean, for any reason, like they run out of money, they run out of business, you know, or they purposefully like delete all the group features like that. Like we decided that they want a new feature to use. So then you mentioned minds.com, Tim. That
Mm-hmm.
reminded me that very moment where I was just a few hours ago I was just like recommending that there needs to be a anonymous sharing of wisdom. And so Minds looks like a site that is very close to like what I would imagine is like critical as a user interface for people to use with a safe network behind it. Yeah.
Yep. And I think.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, what were you saying? I was just gonna say David is back.
Go on then, David. You said sorry. Yeah. Go on. Carry on.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Dana D on the Safe Network forum was talking about the middle people's role, and she's referring to people that are not exactly Joe average, uh, only knows how to log into Facebook and use Facebook, and not the developers. So, and I think that pertains, it almost pertains specifically to people like me, because that's what I do. I'm right in the middle between the developer and the consumer. So I think that the role for those kinds of people will soon become very, very valuable, and it'll probably be uh, it'll probably come out really quick. I think that as soon as we figure out, like once the Safe Network is public and people can start playing around with it, the developers can teach the hybrid developers or the people in the middle, oh, how to do this and how to get this program running and whatnot, and they can sort out all that. And then those people will spread. It's kind of like the network effect, one person teaches two people and those two people teach two more people. So
Yeah.
yeah, the middle people will come. It'll happen naturally, I think. That's what I'm saying. We just need the developers to kind of start us off, saying, here's the installation, here's the instructions, and then you guys can make your own video tutorials. You can make your own ways and do all kinds of stuff with it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that plays in. I'm sure. I don't know if you both read it or everyone read it. The article on the forum that Tonda put out about mass adoption and ease of use, and that plays into exactly what you're just saying there, David. Because I think there's a perfect solution. We just all use plug and plays. And then we can reward each other for it. This is what I'm saying. This is where this is completely different from. It's just what we said this many times before. We're on the edge of the bleeding edge of things. This these things are unknown, but what we're seeing is self-formation of ideas, and it seems a very, to me, logical and natural way of doing things. Like you said, just adding components as they come along, rather than trying to, and I don't know. I don't know if you read Tonda's piece about mass adoption. I thought it was a very clear and concise piece about it, that very thing you're just talking about there, David, about how we could just all, use each other, and then instead of all trying to compete with each other, we just use components, and like you say, it ends up being a snowball effect.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that I'll give the analogy. Let's say this brilliant inventor decides to build a car, and cars didn't exist yet. Okay, so he knows the inner workings of the vehicle and how it works, how it functions, and what components work with what. But now he needs to teach someone how to drive the vehicle. That's where the middle people come in. How do we use the product that he just created? And this is a new product. So nobody knows how to drive the vehicle other than the guy that built it in the first place. Like, oh, I know this pedal makes it go forward and this pedal makes it stop. So
Well,
then, yeah, once he starts teaching people how to drive, then those people can figure out their own ways. Like, oh, I can do this and this and this with the product, and that's the exciting part. That's the part that the farmers club's gonna figure out and discover, oh, this hardware works best, or this bandwidth is optimal. We need this amount of RAM to run this many volts. There's a whole slew of things that we're gonna discover, and that's like, it's like discovery for me. It's like really exciting.
David, what do you think of the analogy, like, with SafeX? The way I will monetize post development is by selling teacups at a margin on the Safe Exchange, and that's like driving it, right?
Yes, exactly. It'll be like a use application of it, definitely.
And I would be the merchant of teacups, and like,
Yep.
I source the cups, and customers buy them or whatever.
Yeah, I think that there will be a learning curve of people learning to drive on the Safe network because they're not used to having one login to go onto the internet. Who goes on the internet with one login? Everyone goes, well, where's my login for this website? Where's my login for that website? And I have to upload data, and I have to use these different applications. So there is a little bit of a learning curve for the Safe network because they're used to just going to a server. They go to the Facebook server, the YouTube server. But the Safe Network, the whole thing, once you log in, you're in the server. And that's going to be really mind-blowing for a lot of people.
Yeah, David, but my retort to that would be, well, I remember the days when you had to get up off your sofa, walk over to the TV, and actually flick and tune, and then the remote control came along, and we didn't need lessons in how to use the remote control. It just made it more easier of use, and that's
Yeah,
what we all adopted. That's the secret of it. It's just making it easier to use.
yeah, Tim, I just thought of AOL. Like, you have one login and you're on the internet, and AOL gives you all the things that, like, not all the things, but like, yeah, you get one
No,
login and you're in there, and
AOL
all,
was the internet.
yeah. So like, maybe it'll be a learning downward slope,
Mm.
Maybe,
like,
yeah.
maybe it'll be. I mean, like, I could just think of, like, personally, I have like, I don't know, like 50 logins and combinations. Everything has its own password, everything has its own username. So like, I kind of don't want to need to keep track of so many, and like, I'll feel like I have to remember fewer logins and passwords, and I get to remember other things. You know what I mean?
So you just pointed out the first usefulness of the Safe Network is
Hmm.
to one login.
Yeah. And like, there's some I confuse all the time, but I know the email. Let's say, like let's say I would I'd forget the username and the password, but if you get me the email, if I remember the email, so I just do a password reset, and then I go, so there's my username. You see, and it's
Yeah.
like, and that works, but it's like, it won't be it's not as good as how like excellent it's gonna be to just use just one. I mean, I could just use one and make a different alias inside.
Yeah, I mean exactly, but the questions. I mean, again, I mean, I'll just beg the questions that that have been asked of me and stuff. And people, this is like you said, David. This is what people maybe are trying to get their heads around. It's like, well, wait, if I have one login and then say I used a application, say whatever it was, wouldn't I need another login for that? And wouldn't I need, and they're so used to every, like you said, every application they use, whether it's SoundCloud or Facebook or Twitter, whatever it may be, that everyone has to have their own password to get onto it. And that's the thing that starts to really, people start to think, well, how am I going to be safe if I log into something if I've only got one password? And these are the questions that we're going to be asked and faced to ask a lot of times. And I think that's exactly what you just said then, David. It is where we're entering is an easier of use thing, but people are going to naturally ask the same question. How's this little controller in my hand going to turn the TV on? How does this magic work? I mean, you don't need to tell them how it works. It will work. That's how I feel about it. But we will be asked the questions. They're going to ask us those questions, and it's finding the concise answers to give back to them when they ask that initial question. Because as you know, as like in life itself, a lot of people's experiences are made in the very first 10 seconds of it. If you can give them a very good concise answer the first time round, and they find that out and they use it, and it's great from in that first experience, that's one they remember. We always remember our first experience with something is one of the strongest memories we have. That's why I think it's crucial that when we do start, if this starts to go out to the mainstream, it's got to be very easy for people to use, because we do not want people using it, having a bad experience, and then telling everyone else like, oh, it was a nightmare. It's all about that first experience. To me, that's how I feel. So it's making those questions answered, easy and concise to answer. So I don't know, how would everyone in the how would you both answer that one? All three of you answer that one?
I would have two approaches for the common consumer that just wants to browse, because that's the first thing. I guarantee you that's the first thing they're going to want to do. They're going to want to look around what's in the Safe Network. What could I find in here? How easy is it to navigate? How easy is it to get in? And if they don't have to create an account, that just removes that obstacle out of the way. They just go right in and start browsing. Now, the along with that angle, they're going to need like some way of searching for things. How do I find stuff? That's the first thing they're going to ask. Like if you've been on the BitTorrent or the Freenet networks, it is very difficult to find things unless you know where to look. And so that's why they create forums. And they say, okay, use this search engine, or this guy has a list of all these addresses for this content. And that's how they find things.
Yeah.
But if we have something that's very user-friendly, like a search engine, that will help you find public content, and that's what we were discussing, like how would people list things so that they can find things. So that's part of the things that they're considering, but I don't think it'll be.
What about a structured data that
Yeah.
that you register public data maps with, and
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
yeah. So
Perfect.
it feels like a direct solution exists.
Yeah, we just need to create that, and then when those people finally show up, it'll be there. They'll have something to look at and say, well, here's a public data list of contents, and then they can do a search query and say, oh, I'm looking for cat videos. Oh, yay, found cat videos.
We could always amend the code for the search algorithm.
Exactly. So,
like, what qualifies the search criteria?
Right. Yeah, so that's the first angle. Then the second angle is for the people that want to participate in the network. These are the farmers and the developers and the app builders. And those people will want to have some kind of tutorial that can say, well, just kind of get me started and I can figure out the rest. If all you need to do, because there's a lot of smart people and they talk to each other and they share information. So all you need to do is just like give them something to get started with. Like, here's a little step-by-step how to build your first website, which I think Happy Being is going to be working on, which is pretty awesome. And for the farmers, I'm going to do it myself because I want, since nobody is going to tell me how to do it, I'm going to figure it out, and then I'm going to make a video saying, here's how you install your Vault, here's how you determine how much bandwidth you need or how much bandwidth you're going to end up using, how much RAM you're going to need to run each Vault, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I'll do for me personally. And for other people, for the Farmers Club, and we'll share information. We'll share what worked and what didn't work, because obviously nobody knows exactly all the answers, but that's the fun part. The fun part is discovering, hey, this actually works better,
Mm,
and that's going to be exciting for me at least.
mm.
So yeah, that would be the second angle. So the builders and then the consumers, or the producers and the consumers.
Yep, and I think again it sort of ties into what we I think is crucial is making it easy for people to basically participate and contribute as well. That's exactly the whole reason behind something like N99 and other portals. It's just to make it very easy for people to come on and, like you said, not only to browse it, but I think browsing is one thing, but if we can get people contributing it and making basically, I think the optimal situation is where people see the SafeNet as their default network, as the new internet, and I think people will, because obviously we know we can sit here and talk about all the technical, the abilities and all the safety and all that thing, but it keeps coming back to it's that first experience. If people have a bad experience that first time around, that's why it's crucial to get people on it, using it, and if they do that and they're using it and it's all very easy, man, they're never going to go back. As I say many times, who other than you, Mr. David, who's walking around with a flip phone? Not many people, because things are better and they're easier, and that's the key to me. But it's getting people in and using it. I think is making them the path for entry for those people who are going to in any way contribute, whatever it may be, whether it's, like you say, even putting up a file or anything. The people who are going to contribute, they're going to be the ones that are going to really, initially, I think, going to be the real strength to add to the momentum of this snowball.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and I'll have to let me look up the name of it. But the idea is that there's this guy who, when he was 18 years old, he created some. He was into information security, and his products are still being used by IBM. And so it's like old technology, and this is why Home Depot's getting hacked, and why all this stuff is insecure still today. Well, he and a group of guys, I think there are 7 altogether in his group, they redefined how to make a large, vast network secure again. And it hit me that with the right, I guess, the right developer, the MadeSafe there could be a MadeSafe application that is literally worth billions of dollars, hundreds of millions almost immediately. If you could make it to where IBM can secure their, or not IBM, but these huge corporations that are using IBM products, they will turn to MadeSafe and use it as the default security. There's hundreds of millions of dollars to be made almost overnight for somebody who can figure out how to get these people on board. I'm going to look up that podcast real quick, and I'll put it on there so you can, if anybody here wants to give it a listen. It has a lot of good information on the latest developments in the tech world, which I expect somebody from here might be asked to join them for one of their podcasts pretty soon. So let me see it. Not the Infinite Monkey Cage. I was just listening to that one. It's called. I'll put it up here in the side margin. It's A16Z podcast. I think anybody here would get a kick out of some of the stuff they talk about. And they actually do talk about cryptocurrencies on this podcast as well. I believe the guy who founded it was funded by Mark Andreessen, which, venture capitalist. He has his hands all over this stuff. So there you go, A16Z. If anybody, I imagine everybody here listens to podcasts regularly, right? I mean, they have it on their telephone where they can subscribe to it. So.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, we use Hangouts, so they're not technically a podcast, but then again, we use the SafePod, so we're technically a podcast.
Right.
Yeah. So the only podcast I ever listen to is just ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have what I do. usually doesn't require a lot of brain work, so for a living, so I have a lot of spare time to listen to things. So,
Yeah.
but I
Well,
find it impossible to listen to a podcast while I'm actually doing something cerebral. I imagine coding while you're listening to a podcast probably isn't a good idea.
David Irvine, he once recommended me to watch a YouTube video at 2 times speed. So that really changed my life, because I used to always wonder, how am I going to watch some video that's an hour long? And the
Right.
answer is just watch it twice as fast.
Exactly. And a lot of these, and you just reminded me that there's an option for that on the podcast. I mean, on the on my
Yeah.
podcast player.
Yeah.
My
Yeah,
problem is, though, I
it's-
feel really lonely when I listen to all the podcasts I want to, and there's nothing left.
But
I
the thing
listen
is,
to it really slow.
but the thing is, you don't miss a thing. That was the amazing thing that I realized. It's
That's
like,
true.
yeah,
Very true.
yeah. It's even easier for me to understand everything.
Exactly, because you're absorbing it at the rate your mind can actually absorb it, like reading a
Right.
book.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's absolutely right.
Because otherwise you get lost on a tangent. Your mind starts wandering off. Like, well.
Well, some books are designed like that.
Mhm.
And I think some podcasts might be designed that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, it ties into this whole, while we say it many times, is a paradigm shift, because I think what we really are stepping into a new paradigm where, and I know David talks about it a lot and uses the analogy, like you're saying, even his image on the screen right now, but the whole point of them, if you're going to use the analogy of the Matrix, is when you do wake up from it, you realize we've all been suppressed as humans. Our potential for what we can do, I mean, do you know what I mean? That the whole idea, like you just said then, Daniel, like listening to things twice as fast. Well, our minds could probably listen to it at 25 times the speed of what we
Yeah,
normally
actually,
listen to.
I just don't know. We don't know, because you can't do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm. This is the whole thing. I as much as we talk about the whys and the wherefores of the safe network, I think one of the things it's going to be really. I think future generations are going to look back and think that was the first doorway into us really expanding our human potential. And that's one of the things I like to talk about a lot around the safe network, is how it's going to expand us as human beings and the ways. And this is why I love talking to people like yourselves, because you can give me the technical and that angle of it. But I think I personally think this is that whole paradigm is we're basically going to understand that what we're using in our minds is very, very limited compared to what the actual capacity we've got inside it. It's like having a laptop and only running Word's note on it, and you don't use anything else.
Right.
Mhm.
Stunned silence.
There's a lady on the Safe Network, on the the SAFEnetwork.io forum, was asking, what do middle people do? She felt like there was no place to go, or no way for her to contribute. After she looked at what's going on in the forum, she thought, oh, everything's too low level and too close to the metal, and I don't understand it. So I don't think I have a place here. And that's the thing. That's definitely not true.
No.
You have a brain and you can think about things that you would like to see develop. There's always room for the more minds, the better. And anyway, as David saw, I referred her to the farming community, because I think that's what she's interested in, is getting involved in farming as soon as it becomes available.
Yeah, I think if you have an opinion, that's valuable. It may
Absolutely.
not be an opinion that everyone agrees with, but it opens the conversation.
Yeah, it's sometimes the most uneducated opinions will still shed light on something important.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the feedback.
Yeah, like everybody got upset about Amanda B. Johnson about a year and a half ago when she wrote that really stupid article that said, MaidSafe is trying to corner the market on decentralization because they're making patents. But what they didn't realize is that even though she didn't do due diligence in researching her subject, she opened up a really important dialogue, which was to get people to talk about why we have to think about the way things are done right now in a legal stance in order to move forward and not be hijacked. It's just the way it is. I think most people hate the idea of intellectual property from the standpoint that it stifles innovation in many ways, and then the idea of patent trolls. But so I think she understood all that afterwards, and I think everybody here probably read the forum post about it. But apparently she's keeping in contact with IOPTIO, So anyway.
Yeah, that's right. If a lot of people, I find it a little bit saddening sometimes because I don't know if it's just the way that people are when they congregate in groups, that once they cling to this certain path that everyone has to agree with it, and then they start ostracizing all the people that raise objections or that bring up difficult discussions. And it's very hard. Believe me, it's very hard to have a difficult discussion without emotion coming into the play and without people saying, well, you're threatening, my livelihood, you're threatening our project, and you're just trying to destroy and sabotage it. But
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
can answer them in a civil way, I think that actually helps strengthen the project.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. One of my favorite podcasts to listen to is Bitcoin Uncensored. And these two guys are absolutely irreverent. They make fun of everybody. They call every other project a scam, and they're just a blast to listen to. I think they're wrong on a lot of stuff, but I don't feel attacked anymore. It's easy to feel attacked when somebody says, "Oh, you're an idiot for going there. You're going to get scammed." Well, you know what? We're all putting ourselves out there because we believe that there's something better coming down the road, and we want to see it happen, and we want to push it. But the point is that these guys, they push people to basically answer for to basically, what's the word, define exactly what it is they're doing in a way that everybody can understand, which is a good thing. And so when you have these, they're almost like the court jesters of cryptocurrency. They're out there, they're making fun of everybody, and then it causes everybody to have a little introspection. What exactly am I doing when I do this? Why am I doing this? What is the real importance of it? And if, as long as you have a compass that tells you this is why you're doing or where you're going, this is a good idea. To have the court jesters, to have the people who put the fire under you to make you answer why it is you think what you are doing is so valuable that the rest of the world should know about it.
Man, as a far wiser person than me said, which is to quote Bill Hicks, man, people have got to learn to stop taking themselves too seriously. You know what I mean? Listen, we've only got a short time on this rock, man. We can't. It all breaks down to, and this is one of the things that, again, I think this is. I know we're entering into philosophical territory here, but I think one of the things about the safe network is it's the ability to strip down ego, and that's going to be why the last people who are ever going to get on board the safe net are going to be the people that have strapped themselves into their product, what it is in the old world. Just as it was, that's the resistance, as you said earlier on, David. The stagecoach lobby at the time had great resistance towards this newfangled thing called the car engine. This is the resistance always going to happen. That resistance is always about ego, because it's like, well, the moment they've got it all cornered and their lives is great, and it always boils down to one person or a few people's egos. And the safe network, because it's decentralized, basically, that's the paradigm shift. It's going to say to people, hey, strip your ego away, man. You'll get rewarded for what you do, and that's the great thing about the safe network. It does reward people. I mean, there's something saying. It can be one of the things I thought the other day, and that's a bit of a tangent off this as well, but one of the great things about the safe network and developers is, the guy who invents maybe the cursor, every time that cursor can be used on the screen, you can get rewarded by the safe network, because that can be plugged into the actual hardware. This is so it does. The safe net only rewards you, but it's definitely going to strip down the ego, because it's no longer we're going to have these barriers and people just telling us about what they want to do, and people are going to come out and be very open. And this is one of the things that I think is going to be a real paradigm shift in us as a species, is pulling this whole barriers and this illusion about what some people are better than other people, and egos, and we're just, this is the old Bill Hicks one again. We live in a world surrounded by tainted egos who are just running around, just ruining this planet for us, while the rest of us are trying to get on. Sorry, I got all philosophical there.
Yeah. the very critical point of that I got was, if you made the cursor, then like it should be up to you how it gets used, right?
Exactly.
And like I'm say I'm saying like it should be in your power to like. I mean, obviously other people can use it how they want, but you should, you get the recognition that
Hmm.
that you made the cursor that everybody's using in the world.
Yep.
Whereas right now it's more like if you made something, you might infringe on a patent somewhere,
Hmm.
or and like you owe someone money or something like that, and you invent something and you didn't patent it, and someone else patented it, or you invent something and you patent it yourself, and that's probably the only way you can guarantee yourself the reward is if you go through the extensive process of patenting something and hoping no one between the invention and the delivery someone screwed you over on the intellectual property, right? So
Hmm.
with a safe network, it's like go to market, it's direct, and
Exactly.
and the intellectual property is like it's how to say it's connected to your privacy. It
Hmm.
you're not the repository is the repository for the patent. Like patent goes in quotes because it's not really a patent. It's more like the development, we would call it. I would rather call it the development, right? So then it's like if you built like a hotel, right? You pick who goes into it, right? Shouldn't that be how it is or something? Like I guess. And like I don't know, obviously if you built it for public use, you let all the people use it, to the extent that you can. And software and like digital content is infinite in production or infinite in consumption. So that has to be also considered. It's like I mean, I was just thinking about it like on the radio. When I listen on the radio, the same music plays the same music all day. It's the same music and there's multiple radio stations playing the same music together. And that means to me that there is a scarcity of music, or or not only a scarcity of music, there's a limited outreach of other music. There's only a selected number of music that's available on the station. You see what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
Tatiana Moroz had a guest on her podcast that I listened to today. I forgot his name, but he's a musician. And he's written some really, I guess, I haven't heard his music, but apparently it's powerful and a lot of people love it. And he was invited to Ron Paul conventions to play his music. And he had a manager or an agent who said that, hey, I'm going to get you on Clear Channel radio stations across the East Coast. And so they sent his album to the person who decides what gets played. And he listened to it, and he got back to him, and he said, I listened to the whole album. I love it. You guys are going to get played everywhere. And then he found out that the guy was a Ron Paul supporter, and the lyrics were, freedom-based. And and then he said, no, I'm sorry, we're not going to play you at all. So,
wow,
Gate, yeah,
I
so
don't
they
believe it.
basically shut
Oh
him
my
down.
god.
They shut this guy down just because of his belief system in freedom. And
You know,
yeah.
there's a movie I saw like a week ago, and like I read the description, and so I was just like, you know what, I'll just see this movie. I'll just check it. And it's called Trumbo, and it's like recent, and it's about a guy who he was a communist, right? But he wasn't even Russian, right? He was just or like any nation from there. He was an American who believed in the communism stuff, like the doctrines or whatever. Like he just thought that they were good ideas and whatnot. And he was the highest paid screenwriter in Hollywood.
Hmm.
And then they blacklisted him. In other words, they made it illegal basically for him to write anything, any kind of materials, because they deemed him a member of the like Communist Party. You see what I mean? Like he wasn't conspiring against the United States of America. he just so happens to believe in the communist stuff. You see what I mean?
Hmm.
So then, so then, so because of this, and he never admitted to being a communist either. So because of this, they blacklisted him, and then he continued writing, and he used the front people to publish the writing, and then he remained the highest paid writer in Hollywood under the table. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the production companies, Hollywood Films, would hire him secretly because all of their movies were terrible compared to what he could produce. So the and he won like an Oscar as a as a digital object. Like he never claimed the Oscar, and he won 2 Oscars or something like that, and like American Award for best movie that he gave some other guy. He gave him the script and said, "Here, you go and submit this movie and see how it does, and you come give me the money, split it with me," because he needed to like pay to support his family and stuff. By the way, they put him in jail for a year. So
Hmm.
then,
Mm.
yeah, so yeah, so I mean, at the end, they they said sorry. They took him off the blacklist and gave him the Oscars directly for the 2 films that won those Oscars. But the point is that that guy wrote hundreds of movies that people consumed, yet he was on a blacklist for being a communist. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
The American Democrats and Republicans all consumed and voted it the best.
Hmm.
That's the joke, you know? Like the
Yeah.
joke is really on everybody who's saying like this guy should be off the air, yet he's the guy who makes the movies everybody loves. So it's like
Yeah.
it's paradoxical.
It is. I'm gonna look up his name while we're
Yeah,
here, and I'll put it in the sidebar.
But everything you just spent the last conversation for the last 5-10 minutes is all the same situation. Always points back to the same elephant in the room, which is centralization, and it goes right back to what you were just saying at the beginning of that conversation. Then, Daddy, I mean, the whole point of why, you were saying about the patterns and stuff like that. Like that's the options you've got. And that's why we live in the world we've got right now. There's a I was listening, there's a great article I was reading by a lecturer, and he was talking about like it took Einstein 25 years when he was at Harvard, and he basically gave up on his final theory, and it was a point he was sort of saying. So now for anybody to come through, because that's how the whole thing is set up. And this is true all over the board, whether it's music, in any industry. The people who have the ideas, they go into to pay the bills, go into work for a company. Those then when you're in that company, you've got there's no incentive for you as a human being to produce other than working for the man who's going to give you the money and take the idea and run off with it. That's what I'm saying. That's like the idea. The guy who invented the cursor that's on your screen, or the guy who invented, he just got probably a nice little settlement way. He's got his house paid, but for the amount of times that we're all using the cursor, or we're all using whatever on the screen, that person's never been rewarded for it. And that's the way of centralization. The same with music, Daniel. That's why you don't hear you saying, oh, well, maybe that it's telling you that the music industry is dead, or that. No, it's because all the music radio stations all want particular radio friendly thing that they've done their focus groups on that fit a certain agenda. It usually fits politics, and it all starts to boil down. And this isn't some Illuminati, there's some 8 people ruling the world stuff. This is just how human beings have. That's why it happened in Hollywood. It's not you try being a Hollywood star and saying you vote like Rich was saying that you vote anything other than Democrat. That's because the group norm or the name in that secular people is, oh, we're all trying to be nice to, and you can understand it. They're all trying to show that they're really nice and using this currency of, oh, look at us, we care about everyone else. So that becomes a currency. So anyone that. And that's the trouble with the world. It splits everything into teams. And that's what I was saying about the safe network. There is no teams in the safe network. The safe network is just basically, look, there it is. It's like the Wild Wild West. There's no, this is one state, this is another. This is just the Wild Wild West. And that's the real fundamental change between where we live in. We live in a world where we've all been divided and conquered, and everything's into teams, and you fly the red flag, and you fly the blue flag, and I vote this team, and I vote. And that's no longer. That's what the SafeNet is offering. It's saying, look, hey, it's just a free-for-all. and that's is why hopefully it's going to have good bits and bad bits. I mean, just the bad bits, yes. That's freedom. Freedom has its good and its bad. But the great thing is it's going to reward, and it's going to those people brave enough in that new world to enter into it are going to be, like you said, Rich, richly rewarded. I mean, in every sense, because but that's life. I mean, people are always the innovators and the early adopters are always the ones that get rewarded, and that's the great thing about the Safe Network. It's just not going to be like, oh, we're going to reward the first people here, and then after that, it's going to be forever and ever and ever. As you come along and you've got the ability to create, you'll be rewarded, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, the Google. So like I hear people who work for Google actually don't get paid the highest salaries.
No.
They actually get pretty much like 50K or something like that. So like I'm not arguing about the salary, but what I'm trying to say is that Google, the wealth of Google is in the founders who built the first version of the system, right? Of the search engine. But then all the innovators after, they all contributed their talent to the first people. You see what I mean? So it doesn't really make sense. It's like an upside down pyramid. It should topple over, right? Like the top of the pyramid should have the least, right? Like the amount of distribution of rewards is like not the guys who started the search engine of Google, but the whole mass of fellows who innovated it on top of it. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they would do. But the point that I make with this is that don't you think that maybe if those innovators were rewarded versus the originators, would it make the difference that those many who did the innovations would excel even further?
Well, I for sure think the people who are the originators would be revered even more by the people who develop on top of them.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And in a way, that's kind of like Plato's Republic, right? You have the originator, you have the people who learn the most, who work the hardest, who, they've done everything in life. Those are the people who end up becoming the elected politicians, who then are not allowed to own property. They actually, and that keeps them clean. And even Plato understood back then that as long as you held the dollar, as long as you held some kind of way to distract them, they could be bought off. And so his idea in Plato's Republic was that, hey, if you're an elected official, you don't own property. You're taken care of and you're revered, and you'll never want for anything, but you can't be bribed.
Right.
Exactly.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah. But I think, like what you're saying, is the originators would definitely be revered by the people who developed around their ideas.
Yeah, but as I'm saying, the people that the originators or the architects and stuff like that. I mean, I can only speak personally. I mean, I can speak personally of David Irwin. I speak personally of people like Daniel and people I know who have actually built stuff. There's no ego there. They're not doing this for reverberation. They don't want people bowing down. The joy that I think, and it will always be for the people that innovate or create or anything, will always be the pleasure they get in seeing their creation enjoyed and used. That's how I feel as an artist. I don't kind of want everyone to kiss my ass and tell me how great I am, but if someone tells me like that painting is moving, then that's what I've done it for. That's I think why the world will be a much more innovative place and a much more a better place when that thought process and that way of thinking is out, it's taken step by step with a safe network where people are always going to look back and go, and David, I've said this to, I can only talk about personally. I've said to David Owen, whether he likes it or not, and I know he never does like it, but he's not going to be able to walk around Scotland. He's going to have towns and statues, and I know he doesn't want it, and that's the point I'm making. He's got no desire for it, but his reason he's doing it for isn't so, oh, I can die with loads of statues. He's doing it because he wants. That's what I'm saying. Like you were saying, Rich, it's the whys of what we're doing. And the world is at the moment is focused on the hows and the whats, and the whys are the important. Like, why are we doing this? And that's not for revelation from people. It's not for money. They're great things. We should all have that. We're doing it because we want to. We want. That's how it should be. that's as simple as it is. It's the reason why we do it is because why not? Why should we be living in a world that's centralized and that innovation isn't rewarded?
Yeah.
Yeah, and to make a connection too is like the guy who made the or the girl who made the not the browser but the the pointer on the screen for your mouse, right? And then so like someone might have done that, but then someone must have also made the trackpad, like someone had to invent the trackpad for that mouse, like, or maybe
Hmm.
like the same person did that. What I'm trying to say is like the ants, people take on the roles of what's needed, right? And I think what is needed is that people don't take on roles. People take on roles that aren't just complacent.
Yes.
That if we could organize information because of this decentralization type thing, where any kind of requirement of some kind of skill could be harnessed immediately, and that skill can trust the system for its reward appropriately, like then I think such a system would like just flourish, like I mean to a next level than what we probably understand today. It's like I hear frequently is like folks much older than I am, right? And you guys could confirm.
You know,
So
you just
if,
got, yeah. Go
if
ahead. Go ahead. Keep on.
you'd watch the films like Space Odyssey 2001, right? When it came out, or like any of those films at the time, then like you'd think that in 30 years later we're gonna be flying in spaceships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't you think you'd ought to be able to do that
Mm-hmm.
if it could be imagined there, you know? And like I feel that that's a reality that's possible because of the amount of empirical theory on the ability to levitate metallic objects. You know what I mean? So it's like maybe it's just that no one focuses on it due to complacent system that rewards you for keeping things the same, not
And
improving
also
them.
kills you if you develop something to such a degree that it's ready to go public, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we can't have that. I mean, there. If you look into it, you don't have to dig very far to find some very sad scenarios where people came up with really amazing objects that, like, one guy created it was something to do with the engine where it would run off water and could go 100 miles on a gallon of water, and boom, the guy, nobody knows where he is now. There's different scenarios where people actually make that leap and they create something that's fascinating, and then they're, for no good reason, they're found dead, a heart attack, they're just missing, whatever. And I think that MadeSafe in general, and just the ability to upload your ideas in a way that makes it to where people will be able to find them no matter what. Imagine if
Yeah,
MadeSafe was around when Tesla was here.
yeah.
We don't know exactly what Tesla did. I mean, maybe, if he made it public, then they couldn't erase it without shutting everybody down. You
Well,
know,
I recently wrote I didn't well I wrote, but Cointelegraph asked me like a question, and like several other people, but they asked the question like, what happens when you die? What happens to your people if they're at an exchange? So I proposed that it has a will system, so that if you don't keep it alive, it will send to an address that you registered with that wallet. You see what I mean?
that's a fantastic idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Is that,
absolutely needs that.
and you set the interval. You could say like once a year I have to check in, and if I don't, that means I'm probably dead, and give everything to someone else.
Exactly. That's a
And
great idea.
yeah, and you pick who that someone else is, and that someone else just needs to maintain their private key.
Right. It could even be set up in a trust where if you give it to somebody who's still too young to read, and it's handled by a system that
Or,
creates.
or if you're
Uh,
killed or if you die, You just broadcast it to the public. You don't even need to give a successor. Just make the information all public, like make all your notes public, and they would be eternally in the safe network. You
Yeah.
could do it without needing a real heir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That might work. I can see some really, I can see some really strange stuff happening in the future if that were the case.
Like what?
I'm just thinking of private photos of people doing things.
Yeah, but you
Sorry.
could selectively choose also,
Yeah.
Like
Right.
you don't have to you don't yeah, you have folders, so you pick the folders. I'm sure
Right.
people accidentally won't do that, or some people on purpose will because maybe they
Right.
want to be remembered and stuff like that.
True.
But
See, I
but
really was with President Clinton.
Exactly, man. But no,
Yeah.
I do think it's just that whole paradigm that the reason this happens, and it's not just where, like you say, Rich, where it's sinister, or it's just the method of centralization. It always it stops it just stops innovation in any form. I mean, that's why I say the creative element is shared across everybody. It's not just, I mean, people say creation, they think, oh, you're some sort of musician or artist. No, creativity is that where we delve into a knowledge that is there, and we pull out something, and we seed it into an idea, and that is always stifled by regulations and laws, and and it always has been. And any great kind of advancement in human civilization has been when people have just broken through those, and met and discussed it. And this is where I think that's what I can't say. That's why I think it's going to be an epoch moment, because
so,
you can't stop water, and what knowledge is, and what we are, is water, and there's nothing that's going to stop it. And when you unleash that torrent.
I wanted to share a
Yeah.
revelation I just kind of had right now. It was like this. Let's say two people want to get involved in a business together, let's say. Like just throwing that out there like that. And then so now you have two people who need to trust each other, right? So I have a feeling that the reason for the laws and the reason for regulations is like this. So it's like, Tim, let's say you and I go into business together. I know where the safe with our how to say, our inventory capital exists, right?
Mhm.
And you have the safe there. And if I steal it, you need some way to find me and get it back, right? And if you steal it, I need some way to find you and get it back. So we're talking about a world where we can't trust each other.
Mhm.
And so what we do is we hire someone called a police officer. And we mutually agree that this man is allowed to arrest us and remove our freedoms if we took the cash from each other. You see what I mean?
Mhm.
And this is a
Mhm.
world. And so the reason for the laws and the reason for regulations is only in a distrusted scenario
Yep.
where there's no real system that protects us from each other. The truth is, we shouldn't have to be protected from each other, but the reality is that we do, right?
So you just made me think of idea, a vision of, we're breaking out of the chrysalis of an old paradigm right now.
Yeah. I think that it was only a criminal, someone with a criminal mind, who could have conceived of even harming another person to
Mhm.
create a situation where they need to recommend that there's a third party who will
Mhm.
imprison one or the other. You see what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, it has to be a conspiracy of a criminal nature to require laws and regulations. You see, because in a software where things are autonomous, the laws and regulations are just there. That it's like, you need to give the correct hash to get the Bitcoin, and you need to give the correct answer to generate that hash to receive the Bitcoin. And if you do anything outside of that, you will not get the Bitcoin. You see what I mean?
Hmm.
Hmm.
And we now have a revelation of being able to build systems that have this regulation and this process. So it's like if you were to kill me and I have a will that publishes all the information into the public, it means that that's just what it is. That there's no advantage to have over me by killing me, right?
No, and in fact, Daniel, that plays into again. This is a very this is how nature does that solution. In fact, I mean, how many seeds in this world, literally on trees and stuff like that, do that? They're waiting for something to brush past it and actually, kill the seed itself, and then boom, it explodes, and all the various seeds just fall out. That's exactly the same thing, and it's a really, like you said, Daniel, it makes you completely untouchable because it's kind of like, oh. It's a bit like, and I don't want to go into this whole area, but it's a bit like the whole, I mean, I'm old enough to remember this. I mean, I was sold the idea that if we chopped off Saddam Hussein, that would be the end of the whole of the Middle East problem. And then it was, oh, we get rid of Bin Laden, and that. No, and all that's happening is the old thing. You chop off one head, and 100 heads
Yeah,
appear,
it's
and
called the
that's the thing.
multi-step
It,
approach.
it works, so that's the thing, because then that's what I'm saying. Like you said, if you know that you were actually to physically harm me, that you're not going to stop my ideas. In fact, all you're going to do is spawn more of them. Then that's a great, like you said, that's just technology, isn't it? Let's just use that.
Did Tim cut out for anybody else?
Sorry, man, I cut
Yeah,
out
he
that.
cut out for me too.
No,
At the very end.
I was just saying, no, I was just saying that like you said, if it's done on the safe network and it's put
Yeah,
into an actual form, then like I say, it means you can be completely protected without any, like you said, Daniel, without any form of violence is necessary. And in fact, it rewards being more the universal principle of not harming each other, and that's a great great way, another great way to reward that universal behaviour, which should always be rewarded, not to harm each other. That's a basic.
yeah. I think we heard you say that before. That was that if that kind of system gives the people that if you harm them, you're not gonna stop them. Yeah.
Hmm.
But it's like I say, I mean, this is, I mean, going back to one of the things, and we kind of, earlier on we mentioned it, and I'm interested to see how everyone's opinions. And I'm asking this a lot, and do you what do you think that the mainstream, your big company, let's take a company like Google or Facebook or one of those, like, how do you think they're going to be approaching the SafeNet when it actually sort of mass adoption? Do you think they're going to try to jump on? Do you think there's going to be? I mean, how do you think that some of these companies are going to approach it, or do you think some of them will jump in? Are they just waiting? I mean, I don't know. I'm fascinated because I look and think I can't see any reason why any company wouldn't want to instantly go on the Safe Network, because I've never known any boss yet really that I've ever spoken to, any company I've
So,
ever known, who's ever
so
liked the idea of being gone.
people say that people say in general that MateSafe doesn't do any marketing or whatever, and then I think of like projects like Ethereum do plenty of marketing, and they onboard the Google, the banking, and they do an active process of onboarding these folks, and so I feel like eventually once we're launched that all the projects of the ecosystem, of the internet, of the crypto net, they're all gonna use or figure out how SafeNetwork fits into their paradigm, and then it's only gonna be obvious that they're gonna realize that they're running out of SafeCoin and need a few more, so they will go and buy some more. You see what I mean?
Hmm.
I think that that's how the interest of the larger companies, how that will garner itself. Like it will it will be through the because it's like when you host something on the regular internet on the ClearNet, you make a server, right? And that server is generic, and it usually doesn't get as much credit as it deserves, right? And like say an Ubuntu server, when you go to the forum, SafeNetwork forum, you don't see the Ubuntu server. You see what the Ubuntu server is showing you, right? So the same thing is going to be, people will have their forum. It's going to be powered by the Safe Network, but you might not see the Safe Network, so to say. You know what I mean? Like obviously you
Yeah,
log in through a client, but I'm meaning like the developer crowd are still going to make it their own version. You know, like if Google was to onboard it, it would still in the background, and they would buy the Safe coin to keep their service running. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll do everything to sweeten the deal so that, yeah, they might even actually start using it like you're saying, but they'll make it to where you'll still want to go through them in order to get to it, so they can still siphon your information until there's enough people that decide they don't want to deal with that at all. But for the most part, I think we can all agree that the majority of society doesn't mind going through a portal that sucks all their private information away.
Right.
And yeah. And so as long as they can make it sweet with all kinds of fun games and pretty pictures and whatever, people will choose to go through a barrier, you know, like it's just like they're that membrane that people use to get to the Safe Network, until the Safe Network has enough developers that actually makes it to where it's a all-encompassing system where everything you want you can get without going through any membrane like Google or Facebook or anything else. But you know, it's interesting things. People, I was listening to another podcast, and it's called Recode Decode, and this woman who is in charge of this podcast, she's the host. She interviews everybody at the top of their game, including Mark Andreessen. I've heard him on there, and the basic idea is that she knows, because she's our age, like I'm talking about Tim and myself, maybe a little bit older, that nothing lasts forever. Facebook isn't going to be around in 20, 30 years. It's just not. It's not. Google, it'll go through different incarnations and try to figure out different business models, but it's not always going to be the Google we know today.
But it already is not the Google we know today.
Yeah, it'll morph. Everything morphs.
It, though. They made a new. It's called Alpha.
Yeah, Alphabet. Yeah, I mean, they'll morph and they'll try to come up with new and better ideas, but so far, and I think this is why we're all here with today, is this idea of a completely decentralized, autonomous network is so amazing that they might try to build a business model around it, but they'll never be able to hijack it. And you know, that's my hope anyway. So, you know, the thing is, as everything changes, and they'll morph if they're really smart. You know, they won't do what Kodak did, and ignore the idea that cameras now have little phones have little cameras on them now. Kodak Polaroid was the one that ignored that, and then they just went to shit. But in that, they were the top of their game for a long time, and I think there's who knows? I think, but you know what? You look at what goes on in the world. And when it comes to fiat currency, and this is a little aside, it seems like it took fiat currency, and I hate saying this, but it seems like it took the ability to create value where there was none in order to create these huge infrastructures that we have today that made the space agency a reality, right? That made so many things a reality, and as much as, and this is something that Tim knows me well enough to know where my heart is on this, but the reality, I think, is even our military industrial complex, as much as we despise what it does around the world, is responsible for technologies that have blown all of our minds, and DARPA and the like. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when you have something like the Safe Network that rewards people directly for their intelligence. This is a new paradigm shift, going from a central government that hands over these billions of dollars to special projects is now handed over to the people, and the people get to decide, this is the next project that I want to see come to fruition. I don't want to see another person dead for no good reason. And this is a huge shift, but up until now we didn't have anything like this even available. So it was impossible to even fathom that we would be where we are right now without having gone through this violent stage that we've gone through. I don't know. What do you all think about that?
I agree with you. Go on. I was going to say, Rich, I agree with you. Maybe some other way, and I do. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Militaries have always been used, and because that's what I'm saying. Because they can centralize the power, they can centralize the wealth, so therefore they can go and pull the best people and build. And what they're asking the technology to be built around is around warfare. That's ancient. That goes throughout history. I mean, that's right back to whenever we want to do. That's you use your knowledge to build the protections or to gain territory. But on the other hand, as much as you're right, Rich, I go with that. But as I said before, and I always use this, the printing press that came out of nowhere, and it was just some guy built a printing press, and okay, great, but it was the people that used that very simple thing that caused the Reformation, that changed half of Europe, and it changed. You could argue the whole of, why America was born and all this sort of stuff. And I'm not flying the flag of the Reformation at all. But what I'm trying to say is, the potential of all of this, whether you're right, I mean, I know the military have funded it all and stuff like this, but the potential, as you said, right, Rich, it's within us all. And it's just finding ways just to, like you said, if we can reward that and we can take down the only way you can get water is from their water source, or reward is from their reward source, and you make it more, as we talked about many times, like a constant in and out of a wave, and people can be rewarded for it. The potential is there. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. The military don't own particularly great, one section of the mind. It's just they've centralized all the greatest minds, and that's why it is what it is.
We can't say that military centralized all the greatest minds, I don't think. Because,
no.
I mean, do any of us here work for the military?
No.
No?
No,
Right.
I think what you meant, though,
I don't think I'm completely accurate. I think if people are building, I mean, you got to realize the ethos of a military is like, if you're building for the U.S. military, and let's say, Tim, you're building for the UK military, technically, we're in a competing or factioned, with just a thin paperwork saying we're not going to shoot each other. And but the thing is, though, underneath it all, there's the sword and slaying each other, and rifles and bullets, and it just I don't get that. In actuality, you can't be there's no circumstance to want to be a member of the military, but the problem, I mean, I don't even know there's any problem,
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, I don't know if you had ever seen, probably not. It's called Manhattan Project, and it's a show that talks about the people who are involved in the Manhattan Project. And the truth is that there was a lot of soul searching, a lot of these people, and most of them Jewish, or a lot of them Jewish, they were trying to figure out, how do I keep any more of my relatives from being massacred? And so that's one of the main reasons that they joined the Manhattan Project. But there were still some people who felt that in the end something was being created that was going to harm even more of their people, the human people.
I think the one thing that's like great about USA, like in general, but I mean a lot of other countries, they give you this right too. It's like you can keep a weapon in your home, right? And it's like that kind of levels the playing field, and like it's part of the reason why we had a Revolutionary War and won it, is because everybody had a rifle at home for some reason, for one reason or the other. And it's not that, I mean, they're tools, essentially, for, people go rifle a deer or something, right? But then when the British came and invaded, then the people, I mean, that was people from the UK coming to the Americas, who then got invaded by their own ancestors. You see? But the difference is that in the UK, probably you don't have many people with rifles, but in the growing Americas, you have people with rifles who are doing hunting or whatever service with the rifle. But then if they're being invaded, they're ready to go, because it's like, what the hell, like, for what? For what?
Yeah. The ability to have a firearm at home is something that should never, I don't think it should be taken away. But the truth is, and we all know now, it's a moot point against a national government, because national governments have bioterrorism. I mean, they have the ability to mosquito drones that can land on you and
No,
inject
no, no,
you.
but you can't do that, Rich, because if you kill all the people, then you have no people to govern
Absolutely.
anymore. So
Yeah.
governments can't come and just murder everybody and
No,
make
no, no,
this
no.
and
Not
that.
not everybody, but a large portion when they no longer need labor. You know, they've got
Yeah, you were
robots and
just
machines.
you're thinking about the robot machines. You know what? Yeah, I hope it doesn't come to that. We'll see. I think it could be. You know, that's a theory that a lot of people are worried about. Is like, oh, once the technocracy is in place and everybody, you know, it basically is just living off of government teat because,
Yeah, basic
well,
income.
yeah, basic income is. And that's one thing we've discussed here too, universal basic income and how that might play into MaidSafe. And I think that's something that people need to think about, because there's always going to be people who can no longer work because they hurt themselves, or there's going to be people who are too old, and that's something that needs to play into the future economy when there's no longer perhaps a government to decide who stays and who goes.
But
Right.
this is a growing issue, is it?
What's that?
This is a growing issue where many people will not be able to pretty much do anything. But
Well,
like,
Well, I'm living in a car right now, so hello from the car. Me and Buzz holding
I've
it
done that
down.
before. I lived out of a RV for a while. Not.
Yeah, I was living out of an RV before it got impounded, and yeah, it was cost more to get the thing out of impound than than it costs to originally buy it. So
that
I
seems to
just
happen a lot.
got the dog out.
Egon, that happened to a good friend of mine as well. His van got towed, and instead he just bought another one.
Yeah, no, for
Right.
sure. It was far outweighed the cost of getting it out. So yeah.
So that's why. What's your dog's name?
Buzz Lightyear.
Buzz. Let's see if Buzz can
Coming,
hear. Buzz.
for
Hey,
coming
Buzz. He's
from the
looking.
home
He's calling
of
me.
talking to you, buddy. Coming from the home of Pixar. As Pixar is right down the street
Ah,
in Oakland,
that's a
and
good-looking
it's in
dog.
Emeryville actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish he was as well behaved as he was looking, but yeah, he's a sweetheart. He tries.
Yeah.
Before you went down that rabbit hole, Rich, and what you were talking about with all that, the question I was kind of trying to really pose was in regards to sort of like, big companies like Google and stuff was, well, surely companies that would for all the reasons that most people would find the safe network appealing, the fact that it's got safety, security, all the things we know about. Well, all those things are going to appeal to a company, and that's why my question. I'm sort of thinking, I can't understand why any company out there would think, actually, I'm fed up of using servers that are especially if you work for a company that's maybe working in data security. I can't understand why more of those companies aren't just jumping up with joy and waiting for this, because surely it would suit them. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. I just think that maybe those companies would love all the safe network, but it seems to be kind of nothing. I don't know. I don't know how everyone feels about that.
Maybe we should ask once it's live. We should just ask and respond, see how they respond to the demonstration of the safe network itself.
Yeah, the reason I say that is because obviously as much as we're going to shift from one paradigm to another and all the rest of it, but these companies. I mean, I'm trying to see completely from their point of view, but they spent years and whatever it is, and I'm not going to get into all that, but they've got right now a database of massive amounts. They've got huge databases, and that's something they've worked on. And yes, okay, in the future the whole thing's going to be completely decentralized. But right now, the people that are in that database, if I've got a bank account or I've got a a credit card company. You know, I don't want to suddenly go, I'm going to give all that up and it's going to go on the safe network. A lot of people, like Rich was saying, are going to want that to be eased into it. And surely that a company would, you know, with all those databases would surely want to jump onto the safe network and find it useful. Because and equally, wouldn't aren't these just the baby steps of taking us from one to the other? We're still going to need some of these things, or am I just thinking we can just jump straight into the new world and think, well, okay, that's just old world stuff? I mean, I don't know. I mean, these are things I think about.
Well, what's the information or the value that's going to be lost by having those databases on a decentralized network? I mean, what would be the loss?
Nothing. That's what I'm saying. I can't see anything.
I wouldn't see one either. I'm just sort of, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking out loud here, but
because surely that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, those companies have got a lot of resources. It's like their resources data, and that's a lot of data that they, you know, they could come. I'm saying, I'm just thinking they could come onto the safe network with all that data and all that base, and make it, you know, even from this, be cold-blooded about it, they could make a lot of money in the sense of how they make money, couldn't they? You know, just by transfer, by offering the people the client base they've got on the data, saying, look, we can offer you more security, and they could even charge you more for the client. I mean, that's how I think, and I think that's what astounds me, that more companies that, you know, we're not having someone in this conversation who's maybe from a security company and saying, oh, you know, it seems to be like you said, it's just us, and it's not we're not having people in, you know, who I only say this because I think, man, some of these people, some of these suits are paid thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon a week, and not even aware of this conversation, and I'm always astounded by that. That's what always gets me.
A buddy of mine, that reminds me, a good friend of mine back from high school actually works for TD Bank, whatever, as a security guy. So I'm going to reach out to him and see if he'd come in and sit in on one of these sessions, and he might have some good, you know, some thoughts coming from that angle, at least, because he's definitely into security penetration testing of banking systems. So.
Well, it's like what David Yanamaka said, you know, when we first started the pod, is like, what the hell? Like, what about the people who work with stuff and they talk to each other? And so, like in this case, like Egon, if your friend became keen on safe, he would talk to his friends too, and be like, hey, there's this impenetrable thing here. What do you think? Right?
Yeah. Get the word out in that community, because, you know, that's the thing, is it needs more, not just adoption, but just spreading the word, and even the concept of, I've been reading more about the blockchain and how the safe network doesn't have that added overhead of a blockchain constantly recalculating and carrying this chunk of data that just exponentially grows along with every transaction. So I think that's there's a lot to that, and that's interesting in its own right.
I wanted to just mention something. It's kind of historic, I think. The Ethereum coin just became more valuable than the Litecoin.
Ah.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
and that being what is the value?
Well, the market capitalization is 150 million, but the reason why I find that significant is that Bitcoin is the main thing that started it all. Litecoin was the first duplicate of Bitcoin, so basically a knockoff of Bitcoin with changed features a little bit. But it just now moved lower, like on the list, and a coin that's completely parallel, that has total alternative traits, right? Like it's completely not Litecoin, and it's completely not Bitcoin practically, except for maybe the blockchain part of it, and it just now Yeah.
And the Ethereum coin went up in value versus Litecoin didn't go down. Litecoin stayed relatively the same, and Ethereum has outpaced it now.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it just like to me, it's an amazing perspective that the like the fortune cookie just had to be cracked open, and then inside is the fortune, right? Like the poem's contents are revealed when you in the fortune cookie.
Nice
And,
metaphor.
yeah, and the
The
Yeah.
other
metaphor.
day, the other day, mine didn't have a fortune. The last fortune cookie I got, it was empty. It
So
was a
that's
total
the
ripoff.
wisdom. That's the wisdom.
There you
Yeah,
go. That's deep. That's
yeah,
very deep. I didn't
yeah,
quite think about it like that, but yeah,
yeah.
What
So
do you think of
saves the
Vinay
company money too.
yeah,
Daniel?
yeah.
What do you think of Vinay Gupta? Have you listened to many of his talks?
No, I haven't heard of that.
Vinay Gupta, he's like an old school cypherpunk from the 90s, and he's been working on the Ethereum project for years now, and or at least a year anyway, and he's pretty excited about it. And he claimed that in 2016 there's going to be over $1 billion poured into the Ethereum project, and
Wow.
side projects included.
Well,
And
I heard
I would,
about that.
I would mention I bought them at the half of what the price is today
mhm.
for about $600. I just put it there because, like, maybe I'll need some ether because I might experiment with it.
I
And
absolutely think Ether's going to go hand in hand with the MadeSafe network.
mhm. And
Yeah.
I remember that I feel like I remember that Vitalik Buterin mentioned that they would go with some solution and it could be made safe or something like that. And but that was like a year ago. But
Yeah.
I think that it's up to anybody to figure out if it fits in and how. Right? And if
Right.
it does, then that works. And
Mhm.
like absolutely. And I think it'd be hard to not learn about SAFEnetwork because even remember last pod, a fellow in Finning, that fellow came here who found out about us from the Ethereum forum. Remember that
Well,
guy?
that's how I found out. That's how I found out about Ethereum to begin with. Was there was a lot of talk of it in the Safe Network forum, and I
Right.
was sort of confused because I was like, well, where does this tie in, and how, what is Ethereum versus Made Safe or Safe Coin, and yeah, it confused me more, but I'm still confused anyway. So
Does anybody have any insight onto why Gavin Wood left the Ethereum project?
Gavin Wood left the Ethereum project?
Yeah, that's what the twins over at Bitcoin Uncensored were talking about. And I don't know for sure. That's what those guys. You have to take everything they say with a grain of salt. But they claim that he wrote a letter. It was a short letter on Reddit saying that he'll always be available for the developers at Ethereum, but he's no longer part of the project.
oh, I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
don't know.
yeah, I thought that was kind of odd.
So here's the quote from the blog post. Like the Floyd's work, in the time I've been involved with Ethereum, I've sampled the full gamut of emotion, from the amazement of meeting ... Huh.
Huh.
Yeah. Here's a link. On January 11th. The time is
Okay.
gone, the song is over.
Yeah, it makes you wonder because according to some people, he was the actual person who came up with the idea for it, not so much Vitalik, even though he had a lot
Well,
to do.
that's absolutely true because Vitalik doesn't know how to write software, and he admitted it.
Huh.
Yeah.
So what was his part then? If he doesn't.
Vitalik Buterin owned Bitcoin Magazine, so you could think of it as like the Gutenberg.
Ah, okay. A way to get the word out. Huh. Huh. Let me pause.
Well, just the name Ethereum itself is sort of I don't know. It doesn't give me a lot of confidence, versus like a safe, safe coin, safe network. Ethereum just seems
But that's
sort
the
of,
thing about projects, though. But that's the thing
amorphous.
about the projects, though, right? Like the originator, like it's not that Gavin is like lost and forgot. He chose to walk away, right? So
Right.
so and it still goes on. It's like Bitcoin. It still goes on, right?
Yeah.
Like Satoshi walked away, but
Yeah. Good
the
point.
everything keeps moving. It still happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a
Well, that
feeling
means
that Gavin hasn't sold all his ether, unlike what was it, Mike Hearn sold his Bitcoin, if that even happened.
Right.
Hey, John,
Hello,
how you
hello.
doing?
Doing good. Sorry to join late. I haven't been able to get this Hangout to activate on my phone, so I'm having to. I had to pull over and hang out for a little while, see if I could. Can somebody send me send me an invitation?
Yep.
Hey,
you're in
John.
it, aren't you? Oh.
Well, I am, but I am on. I'm trying to get it on my phone so that I'm
Yeah.
not tied up to my. Actually, you know what? That's okay.
Yeah.
I'll just
There,
eat later. I'll just set
there
this
you
over
go, John.
here.
I've just sent you
I'll
one
Yeah.
set
now.
that over there and
Star.
drive. Oh, did you send me one?
I've just sent you one now, so you
I don't
should
know.
have.
I don't. I have trouble with all this. I really am terribly technically challenged, believe it or not.
Welcome to the team.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, it's one of my selling points for what I do. I really am ignorant. Uh, actually, yeah. Did Francis make it? I saw that he had.
No.
No, I
No.
haven't
Okay.
heard Francis.
Okay.
We're,
He
we're,
had.
John, we're all we all realise in this conversation that the most intelligent one here is the dog.
Yeah. Right. Buzz,
We're just searching wisdom from the dog, man.
Buzz has got it all figured out.
Yeah,
Exactly, man.
we're all still
Life,
talking
life served on a platter.
Watching
Yeah.
Buzz.
Now I've got this. Okay. Okay. I got this on my phone, and it's an invitation, and I've already said yes to it. But how do I join?
I think you're already in it. I think it's hard. Like, I don't know if you can join from two devices on the same. Since you're on it in your phone, you might have to leave on your phone and then join because it's all sort of one hangout,
No, I can. Well,
from the
I've done it
account.
before where I've been. Okay, there
Oh,
we
you
go.
have?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think.
something's happening. Maybe. No. Oh, oh, that was John.
Hello.
Is that you? I see another John with a blank square. So I don't.
Okay, well that's me. Hang on, let me see. You hear me over here? Hang on.
David, are you still there?
Yeah.
Hello, you hear me?
Just on the interest of what's gone on, it's something that we crept up in our conversation. But with what's gone on with the stock exchange around the week around the world this week, do you think this is going to have any relevance to the Safe Network at all about the actual financial and how fiat? Because I know I saw the stock exchange, and do you think these are going to be pushes and pulls towards the Safe Network, or do you think they're just not relevant?
I have an answer, but I don't think many people will like it. If you
Right,
guys are brave enough
mate,
to hear.
tell
Try
me, man,
us.
tell me.
There is a global deflation happening. And by global deflation, I mean the debts are evaporating. And when debts evaporate, that means the money evaporates. And when people have less money to spend, that means they don't spend. If they don't spend, prices go down. So if prices are going down and supplies are increasing, you have this major shift of unemployment that's going to chain react. So we're now in a death spiral. So this is going to affect everything. It's
Oh
not
my
just going
God.
to affect the dollar or the yen or the ruble. It's affecting everything. And the biggest corporate is the derivatives. So I know that I'm throwing a lot of different terms out there, so I'll just try and simplify it. If you have this huge amount of what they call liquidity, we'll say currency liquidity in global sense. So we're talking about all the money and all over the world. If that's evaporating, I mean, literally picture it as disappearing. So now there's less money flowing around, and there's less money going to people. So if they have less money to spend, less money to earn. That's why all the prices are dropping. So what's happening is the stock market is, a lot of the mainstream media is trying to spin it as, oh, we're just going through a correction. We're going through a correction. But it's actually going to keep falling. And the reason it's going to keep falling is because the money keeps evaporating. That's the
No,
main reason.
Isn't that what happened with the mortgage securities and all that, with like the securities fraud and the last bubble with all the securities?
Yes, it's similar.
Everything.
It's similar to that, but that was just one sector. The mortgage sector was just one sector. I'm gonna have to like go into a whole economics lesson, which I don't think you guys want to hear. It'll probably bore a lot of people.
All my data is gonna run out by the time that ends. But
Yeah.
it's,
So I just keep it simple. Back to what I was saying. All the prices are gonna keep going down, and the one thing, there's a very short time window before the governments finally are forced or decide to take action and hyperinflate. And by hyperinflate, I'm not using that word lightly. They will hyperinflate because if you're a historian, that's what the reaction has always been. They always hyperinflate in times of crisis. So we're heading over this cliff, and they're going to hyperinflate. But up until the point of hyperinflation, the cash that you control is going to gain in so much purchasing power. It's going to be, it'll be like, I always refer to it as, this is my Black Friday, the one that
I
I've
was
been
just
waiting for.
thinking that, and I was like, is this 1929 or what? Yeah.
Yeah, so the people that actually have cash that doesn't get evaporated, like let's say the cash that's in a bank, when the bank folds, your cash is gone. You're never going to see that again. You're going to get Cyprus, you're going to get Argentina. There's a whole history of things that has happened already when the banks seize up, because your money in your bank account is also tied to all the derivatives that the bank is involved with. So
Right.
it gets really complex, but keep it simple. Cash evaporates, so the cash that you keep in your possession, like physical, and the assets, but temporarily it will go down in the purchasing in the price. The price will go down, but after the price goes down, then the governments will step in and they'll hyperinflate. When they hyperinflate, that's when you want to have the assets. So that's what I'm doing. I'm waiting until my Black Friday comes, then I'm going to go and spending spree, so to speak. I'm going to take all my cash and convert it into assets. And the assets meaning cryptocurrencies, gold and silver, other things.
But
I don't pertain to just one asset. So.
But wouldn't cryptocurrency? I had a vision the other day that Bitcoin would be like $20,000 because why? Because there's so few of them, and even the Dow Jones average is $13,000 or whatever. So just as simply the same way, a cryptocurrency could become that expensive, right?
If they hyperinflate, see, you have to people have to have $30,000 first of all to pay for that Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
That's how it would go to $30,000.
Right.
But if they don't have the currency, if they don't have the dollars or the euros or the yen to pay $30,000, what are they going to offer?
So only post this deflationary period.
After after the hyperinflation, yes, but not beforehand.
David, I have a question. It's like, but this would happen overnight? No.
I didn't say it would happen overnight.
But that's my question. It wouldn't, right?
I think, and this is just me speculating because nobody really knows when the governments will hyperinflate or how quickly or over the long term. Nobody knows except the guys that are going to do it. But my guess, this is my best guess, is by April we're going to be fully aware that we're in a recession, a big global recession. And by the end of this year, we're going to probably hit bottom. Because things fall very fast. In 2008, it only took 3 months for the market to really fall sharply. It was only 3 months. But it continued dropping throughout the year. Sorry, John?
I said it's already started falling since the first of the year.
Exactly.
Stocks are crashing, and bankers are saying bad news ahead. And when bankers are saying bad news ahead, that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
I'll,
So my
They lie.
speculation.
They lie as long as they possibly can.
Oh, for sure. They're trying to spin it right now, saying, "Oh, don't worry. Even though we feel like we're going over a cliff and everyone can sense it, they're just like, oh no, it's going to be all right. We'll
here,
be fine.
Right.
We'll just bounce back."
a funny
But
thing
it's going to
happened.
keep going.
In August, I bought a ETF. I put $2,000 on it. That when the S&P goes down, this ETF goes up 2 times.
So you're
And
shorting it. Yeah, you're
yeah,
shorting the market.
double shorting the S&P 500. But guess what
Yeah.
happened 2 weeks after I bought that ETF? The S&P crashed 10%, and I made $500.
Nice.
But guess what? Guess what? That ETF just about 2 or 3 days ago. So that ETF went from $20 to $25, and then it went back to $20. And remember, when it goes up, the S&P is going down, the stock market's going down. And
Yeah, I
now
understand.
that ETF went back up to about 24 something just recently. So it's starting to create a pattern where it's starting to make a lot more because the S&P keeps going down more consistently. So like
Yeah.
it's the end. It's like a brick wall where it can't go higher, you know? Like the stock market can't keep going up anymore. It's a brick wall moment.
The good news for SafeCoin is that I mean, if we can get the Safe Network going and SafeCoin being produced, the the good news there is people don't have to buy in order to have. They just have to be able to provide some resource, which may be
Yeah.
may be difficult for people, but unless as long as people are still using the internet, there will be SafeCoin appearing everywhere.
But John, don't you think that it's easier to farm than to buy with fiat?
Exactly.
Oh, it should be, yeah.
Yeah. Because
It
you
should
got
definitely easily be, and everybody will be doing it. I mean, that will make the farm rate very low, but that will make SafeCoin more valuable too.
yeah, it
As
works
long as everybody gets some, we'll be all right.
right.
Yeah, I mean, but what's the SafeCoin capped at? Isn't it
4.3 billion.
4.3 billion? And and farming, isn't it like a random sort of thing? Like you're not guaranteed a coin based on the output or the resources you provide. It's just like it goes into a lottery somehow.
Yes.
Well, simpleton though I may be, I just did a podcast on this. If you'd like me to do a recap of that,
Yeah, yeah.
and anybody who knows more can correct me, but it seemed to pass muster. Um, so you're farming along, and you store data, and you're caring for data. Somebody calls for data. Okay, that's on your drive. You deliver it up successfully. There's basically a mathematical computation that goes on, which is affected. It's levered by your vault rank. If you've been doing a good job and you have a high vault rank, that increases the chances of scoring, plus whatever the network difficulty, farming difficulty is set at, farming rate. Those two factors go in with the math, and to whatever, and a certain amount of those requests are going to be successful. Now, what that allows you to do is to then ask for a safe coin. And then what happens, that gives you the right to make an attempt. So that's one barrier. The next barrier is actually to request what is effectively a random address in the safe networks, in the safe coin space. I think it's deterministic depending on all the data that you're dealing with, that the vault is dealing with at that moment, but it's effectively random. The network queries that address on your behalf. If a safe coin exists there already, the attempt fails and you don't get one. If there is no safe coin at that address, Now these are valid SafeCoin addresses only that get queered. There's 4.3 possible addresses, and the network knows what those are, that range. So you request that you hit that address. If there is no SafeCoin in that slot, you are awarded with it by the network, and a piece of structured data, which is a SafeCoin, is created, and you go in as the owner. And then you have cryptographic control of moving it around. So that's, I think that's a pretty,
control. You have
yeah,
control. You have control of deleting that coin too. I mean, what happens once this hits the cap and there's 4.3 billion safe coins floating around?
Well, let me follow the rest of the cycle through.
Okay.
Then whoever's SafeCoin address is assigned to that. There are two addresses that appear at the top of that SafeCoin. One is the current owner, and the second is the previous owner. When one is created, the first owner's address is put into both slots. You want to send that. You have cryptographic control of the private key to that. You can direct that be assigned to someone else. So basically, then they get put in as the first owner, and you remain as the previous owner. That SafeCoin gets passed to somebody else, you're gone. You're out of there. It's just the previous owner and the new owner. Now, that goes around the network until you say, I want to store data to the network, and I only have more data than I have capacity for. So you want to buy from the network the ability to store data. You want to put data to the network, immutable or structured data. And then you say, network, here's a SafeCoin. Give me as many puts as that will allow. And I believe you don't actually get bytes or gigabytes. You get it in number of puts. I believe that's how it's metered. Because you think about it, you're putting a file. You chop up immutable data, and that's a megabyte maximum. And it's 10 chunks, the network's not going to go, well, yeah, but one of those chunks is only 100K. It's going to go, okay, 10 puts, there you go. We take 10 puts off of your total. And structured data is only 100 kilobytes. And I imagine that costs more because that costs one put. So what if effectively you've spent your SafeCoin back to the network and it's erased? That SafeCoin address is then erased, and it becomes free to be farmed again. And that's how the SafeCoin cycles back through the network.
Yeah, to reach the cap would mean that no one is spending SafeCoin anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that means that if no one's spending SafeCoin, then we're stored. That means no one's adding capacity either.
Well, nobody's storing. It means that nobody is storing data on the network. Right. Which means the network is not functional.
Would this be similar to like a S&P market cap or like a Dow Jones cap on like a currency stock exchange? Aren't they capped as well?
I don't understand the question.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Like what Daniel was talking about with the S&P hitting a brick wall and not going up anymore, and just sort of.
That's a completely different kind of cap.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
S&P is a theoretical cap. It's how much. I mean, it's even beyond how much cash is available in the world.
Okay. I'm not really familiar.
That's just where the S&P cap he's talking about is where the market realizes that this isn't worth shit, and I'm not going to pay, and that's exactly how much I'm not going to pay. That's the cap. That's where the market the SafeCoin actually is a mathematical cap. There are only so many SafeCoin addresses that will ever be. Now, as SafeCoin gets more valuable, divisibility can be added to the network so that that SafeCoin, you don't have to spend a whole SafeCoin. You can spend 1/10 of a SafeCoin and get a whole bunch of storage for it.
And I would also add that I think the 100% distribution of SafeCoin is an asymptote. It never touches the if you look at the chart for SafeCoin, it goes to 99.99% distribution, not 100%,
Hmm.
which
Well,
means
because it just can't
yeah.
if the network's being used.
Well, if it went to 100%, effectively the safe net. I mean the the safe network it wouldn't work. It wouldn't be perpetual. So
Well, what if it got to 100%, that would mean no one could farm,
yeah,
and so there
Yeah.
would be no incentive to provide resource to the network. But
yeah,
there's back and forth that SafeCoin feeds back into the network, and the network adjusts how easy or hard it is to farm based upon the capacity, whether the network is being filled up or or relatively empty.
yeah. So effectively, there's not going to be a situation where people stop storing data completely and everything's been farmed out, because new data has to keep coming in for farming to happen because of caching. If all the data, unique data that people are using is cached and there's no more unique data, there won't be any more farming happening. So
Yeah.
it seems like a very far-fetched and rare situation that 99.99% of coins came in. It would mean that people didn't add capacity, people stopped spending the coin on data, and that there was enough unique content to have been gotten. It just seems like
Yeah,
a
yeah. The internet
I,
would be over or whatever. Yeah,
I think it's safe to say that the network would
I get
fail
it.
for some other reason long before that would happen.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And I would spend some safe coin just to make it farmable again. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I would I don't know, like I'm saying like store stuff. Like what I mean by I don't know is like I can't imagine that people wouldn't store things. You know,
Yeah.
like
Well,
how
I
can
think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that the whole concept of unique data is going to be really interesting,
yeah,
where there's no like duplicated, like a movie or a music file or whatever. It's like that is the file. There aren't any duplicates. Like that's a really cool concept coming from the way things are now, and the amount of data that's just replicated across different storage mediums.
yeah,
Yeah, no, deduplication has some really good possibilities for. Now, I mean, there's a lot of intricacy, but there's like I say, the network would fail far before we would run out of safe coin. It'd mean
Gotcha.
nobody's using it. Nobody's using it to communicate. Nobody's using it to put data out there that other people
Huh.
want to view. No,
Yeah, yeah. It would be frozen. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
So
Well,
taking that,
So
thank
if
you
you
for
want
the explanation, David.
yeah, and that let's see, I think that's in episode. Let's see, that's Safe Network class number 9. I gave that and a bunch of other data about SafeCoin.
Okay.
so David, taking that right back to where you began with that,
Oh yeah.
what would be your recommendation? Sort of like after you said about coming sort of like April time and end of the year, what would be your recommendation to the everyday person? The person doesn't maybe understand economics to that level. What would be your recommendation? Obviously to go out and farm. For instance, would it be worth waiting around till maybe like at that given point, whenever it may be, and then at that point go and buying as much hardware as possible to use for farming? Are these kind of tips and advice that you'd be saying to people out there?
I just want to qualify that what I say is just based on speculation
Oh, of
and
course, of
theory.
course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so just want to make sure I don't put out
It
any.
all is. It all
Well, I'm
is.
Tell
sure
me
glad,
that this is gonna work, and what the hell?
I am sure glad you said that, David. I was counting on you.
Yeah,
Okay, so
Go
disclaimer.
ahead.
let's start off with, if the prices keep going down, that means hardware will get cheaper. If hardware gets cheaper, that means farming becomes more profitable.
Mm-hmm.
That means people's going to buy. First off, USB 3.0 I think is going to be a very critical factor because I'm doing a lot of research right now, and USB 3.0 tech is 5 times faster than 2.0. It is also used for gigabit Ethernet. So again, I'm sorry if I'm throwing out a lot of different terms that people don't understand, but that's just I'm a techie.
It's
So.
pretty standard.
Okay, so the hardware gets cheaper, people are going to buy more advanced hardware. I don't think that the old computers that are still on the old ports or the slower speeds, it's just like, you're trying to run your internet today on your 28.8 kbob modem.
Yeah.
So that's going to be good for farmers, okay? And I think that will actually help a lot of people get into farming.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the SafeCoin price in terms of fiat value, I think it's going to keep going down, unfortunately. And the reason being is because people will have less fiat. The same will apply for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the other asset classes up until they hyperinflate. Once they hyperinflate, the money will flood back into the system, and then the whole thing's going to shift to the other direction. Now, there is a very small opportunity for us to make a paradigm shift. That means if we're no longer working to earn fiat, but we're working to earn SafeCoin.
Exactly.
If that happens, it's going to be very, very different world for us.
That's what
I'm
I've
not.
been.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I know it's really
This is
exciting,
a
and
hot
John.
topic for me. This is a
Yeah,
hot topic for me. Let me just
yeah.
run with this
Go.
because in the last class, episode 29, safe network class, I make a big point of this because people don't get it. Don't get it. If
Not
we
yet.
have
Not yet.
if we have millions of people farming and ending up with just a few safe coins, they're going to have other people in their vicinity physically, and they'll encourage other people in their vicinity to get on the safe network so they'll have a place to spend it, and so that other people will have it so they can receive it, and it'll bypass completely the need to go in and out of the banking system. It'll go directly into trade.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was thinking, and I saw it on Trollbox earlier. Some guy's like, "Hey, if you're ever stranded, you're gonna need Bitcoin." It's like, wow. Like, if I don't have a credit card, or if I'm in a foreign nation, I need a plane ticket. My credit card could be blocked, and I could be stranded. But my Bitcoin could be blocked. And if I could just get on the internet, I could buy a plane ticket and get unstranded. It's like, and the same thing, if I'm in town and I need to spend some money with someone and buy a carton of eggs, if I got the coins and that person recognizes them, then that's a boon. I don't need the banking system, right?
Exactly.
Like,
That's why I go completely nuts that people don't get this point.
Mm.
I say, oh yeah, that's nice, because they're used to thinking in their fiat currency and everything's because
Exactly.
that's money to
right.
them. But there's going to
So,
be a
like, what do you
point
think
really
about?
fast where SafeCoin will become money of itself, not just another way of getting in and out of other money.
So it's
Anyway,
like, what for? Go to the bank branch, fill it up with some fabric, and then go to where you want to spend it. Why not just forget going to the bank and filling it up with the fabric? Go just
Exactly.
directly to the place where you need to spend.
Exactly.
right, and this is going to be formal because they're informal at first. But as people get desperate, they're going to start looking at other solutions. They're going to start ignoring the law that says, oh, well, you have to, in order to exchange, you have to use this kind of,
What
the
if the
Russians say what?
dollars are an alternative currency that we use just to pay our taxes,
Namely, yeah.
right? It's the dollar is an altcoin to the United States government.
Exactly.
That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
with an inflationary model and demurrage and
Hmm.
Yeah,
yeah.
but I was just thinking like in Bangladesh, there's like certain areas that they use the Bangla Pesa. I referenced it in the SafeX promotional site, and they do that in response to the fact that they can't get enough physical currency to do their over-the-counter trading and barter, right? Like they sell product, but no one has physical money because it's just not available, and they're waiting for it to be delivered. You know,
Right.
like from a paycheck, or like people just literally waiting for their physical representative currency. So instead, they made their own to facilitate that gap from when their money is on the way, the physical currency is on its way to them, so they can use their own money. Instead, they use a proxy. So
So the real world out of necessity.
yeah, out of
That's
necessity.
cool.
I'm thinking like David Yanamaka was bringing to light the deflation. There's going to be a scarcity of currency, so we got to turn to other methods, right? And like, and seriously, the coin is so much more easy to use. I'll give you an example. Uh, the video for SafeX, uh, the fellow wanted to meet promptly so I can pay him, right, post the sale. So, and I said it took me some time to finish selling it for fiat, and then I have to come meet you physically and bring you that fiat, or I have to deposit it somewhere. And then it dawned on me. I said, unless you're willing to accept it in the form of Bitcoin. And when he did that, I could promptly send it to him just a few hours later.
Exactly.
Hmm.
I mean, the thing with this, Daniel, is as well. I mean, I don't know where it's over here, but this is already in the real world situation. I mean, most supermarkets over here have membership things where you basically, if you go along and they reward you for shopping at the place, and then you get points, you can spend them. So these concepts, they're not that unusual, because what I'm trying to say is I don't think people are that bound actually to money. Like you said, I think basically that they use dollars, or over here sterling, just to go
Yeah.
at what they have to in their interaction with the state, which is what people don't really want, and they get annoyed by it personally. But I've always liked the idea. I mean, I always liked the way that David Irwin particularly talked about. He likes the idea of SafeCoin being like cash, and the idea that is, nobody, you can't trace it. It's just there. It's flexible. It's around. I think it's another thing that's, again, is a very attractive pull towards the people out there, that it is cash and not. That's one of the things we've touched on a few times with Bitcoin, that it is always stamped there, and I think that's a bit of a intrinsic. I think that's why Bitcoin hasn't taken up over here, because the English are very, and the British are very suspicious and stuff about anything where their information is recorded forever. I mean, that's just nature of us over here, and I think that's why Bitcoin hasn't adopted. But I think SafeCoin and SAFEnetwork will completely flourish over here, completely, because of that very reason, because it's more intrinsic to cash than it is to having a check.
Well, it might even help bind the governments to more responsible and real use of currency. I'm just thinking of like situations where coins cost more to manufacture and create than they are in value. Like a penny, it has more copper value than a penny.
No, it has more
So
zinc
there's all
value.
these zinc or raw elemental whatever material worth. So there's a lot of situations where that might like bring back some just spurious spending and just insane devaluation, where they're devaluing the currency just on its face by how they create it and how they distribute it.
That's a good point.
Right, and the problem with Bitcoin is it's going to have fungibility problems because of the transparency of the blockchain. Now, the Dash is apparently doing a pretty good job of altering that. So there are other. I mean, SafeCoin's not going to be alone.
Are you saying that with the blockchain, because of the growing size of it and the fact that it
No,
has to be
no,
duplicated?
no. Because transactions are tied to addresses, which are pseudonymous. They are not. You don't necessarily know who owns them, but if you start finding any data about who spent them or who benefited, or like for instance, you buy coins on you buy Bitcoin on Coinbase, then you spend them. That starts tying transactions to identities, and there's an amazing amount of data that can be amassed and figured out from looking at the blockchain, because it's just a public record of cryptographic addresses and inputs and outputs, and you can track an awful lot. The Ross Ulbricht trial, they demonstrated an awful lot of ability to know. But in doing that, there's always the risk of somebody saying, well, I'm not going to accept any Bitcoin that is tainted by something we know to have been an illegal action. Oh, somebody bought drugs with it or sold drugs for it, so we're not going to accept anything that has a history that traces back to that transaction. Well, that breaks the fungibility. In other words, one Bitcoin is not the same as any other Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well,
SafeCoin will be fungible because it's launderable. All you got to do is send it to an anonymous address, and then pass to address that you create for that purpose, and pass it on. And even without doing that, the connection to your identity is nearly impossible to trace. So that's what he's talking about in terms of the fungibility. That's what we mean about fungibility. It's a key important thing. But I was saying Dash. There are a couple of other cryptocurrencies that are making progress in that realm as well. So SafeCoin isn't going to be alone in this field, which I think is wonderful.
Yes.
I all hail Bitcoin, because it's the opener of the way. It's the bridge. It's the bridge to all that fiat value. And I've always thought that when we see addresses holding Bitcoin that were known to be belonging to Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever he is, and that haven't been touched since he disappeared, when we see those being transacted for SafeCoin, we know we're there.
Well,
when SafeX is being used to swap those two, then oh my.
Well, just think about the perspective of a Satoshi Nakamoto with like 1 million Bitcoins, and the rate that people are adopting Bitcoin. I think, if anything, the reason why central governments can't adopt Bitcoin is because one guy owns 5% of all of them. Imagine.
That's an interesting thought, isn't it?
Yeah, I never thought of that either until just now. Is that, what if we converted $14 trillion of GDP all in Bitcoin? That means one guy is going to be a trillionaire of fiat. I mean, explicitly. Not even just politically. Explicit control of $1 trillion.
Right.
That's kind of a security risk, I think.
Well, there's an even. I hadn't looked at that. But Andreas, in one of his talks, Andreas Antonopoulos really makes a good point of the era of flag currencies is going away. Bitcoin opens the way to international, non-owned non-flag currencies. Dollar is a flag currency. Pound sterling is a flag currency. And even the special drawing rights are under the flag of the World Bank. That's going away.
Right.
So there's no way these guys are going to adopt Bitcoin until they just don't have any choice because it does away with the flag. If you have a national currency that says, okay, we're going to go over to Bitcoin, they have basically committed seppuku, you know.
Mm.
Exactly, John. And beyond that, John, I mean, come on, we've got a poor old lady over here who's 86, and she's so vain. She needs her picture but be put on every note. Come on, she's got vanity. We need to fill her vanity, the poor old love.
Well, we'll put her right there next to the dog on Dogecoin.
Exactly.
Maybe she could have her own coin, you know.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's true. Yeah, and
Buzzcoin. All hail Buzzcoin.
John,
Where are you, Buzz?
John,
Say
that was
what,
an
Dan?
interesting perspective because the Queen of England is like a celebrity figure,
There he
right?
is.
And it would be like, I mean, it would be like a Tatiana coin or something, right? And like,
Right.
and the fans of the Queen, which she has many, right? And it's like, you can say I'm a Queen holder, you know, like I'm a big supporter or I'm a little supporter, but if you hold the coin, at least you can prove that you are a supporter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But then,
No, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
but another thing Paul brought up, he's like, you know, there are people with more than $1 trillion already. And I was thinking about that. Think about this: is like, Goldman Sachs, the company, has like $1 trillion of assets, right? So, I mean, obviously there's different rights, and there's more companies like that than just Goldman Sachs, and so I think that it already exists in such a. So this is kind of an interesting spin on that. Is that like, it's like, so I guess it's hard to make, and then Paul said, and then they tend to cooperate. So how can you make the guy who you don't know who he is cooperate? And what if the hunt for Satoshi Nakamoto is just simply to make him cooperate and give up some of those coins to some entity? Like, imagine the United States got a hold of Satoshi's Bitcoins. I'm sure that they would
Wow.
then promote it to the world and say, Bitcoin is the best, and everybody should invest in Bitcoin, just like the Chinese did, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese government actually went on the air and said, yeah, they said invest in Bitcoin, and then it went to $1,000. So it's like,
Yeah, I saw pictures of giant farms in China, like giant Bitcoin mining
Yeah.
operations.
yeah, and those are real.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was mind blowing.
Yeah.
I have a question for everybody. Who here has read any of Neil Stephenson's novels or listened to them in audiobook?
No.
Nobody? I have a recommendation. Two, but for different reasons. The most pertinent is called The Diamond Age. I really recommend it. You can download an audiobook off of any torrent site. The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson. It's basically post-national world, where the world is organized in a completely different way. Also, and for reasons very much akin to what we're talking about, they talk about when money transmittal. He talks about when money transmittal became impossible to trace, and that was one of the key things that caused it to happen. Extremely entertaining and enlightening on a lot of different levels. The other one that I recommend is Snow Crash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those
Heard of
Richard said
that.
that one too.
those are both incredibly pertinent. They're fiction, like I say, they're very entertaining, but they're also prescient in terms of, we're gonna see things coming that way in terms of how the world organizes itself when it can no longer be organized from a hierarchical basis.
The Diamond Age
Wait.
and Snow Crash.
The Diamond Age and Snow Crash, yeah, by Neil Stephenson.
Gotcha.
And I love, and they're both excellent audiobooks if you download and listen to the audiobook.
From something we were talking about earlier, and I hate to digress, but I'm going to. To correct, I'm making a correction. We were talking with Rich earlier about Ethereum, and he said Gavin Wood is leaving or something like that. But get this, he's saying this words in the blog post. It doesn't say anything that he's leaving. But check this out. He says, "I'm afraid to say I'll be letting my C++ get a little rusty as I explore various avenues of technology other than C++ Ethereum. Nevertheless, I'll do my
Rust.
Oh,
all about Rust.
that is cool.
The road ahead is surely bumpy, but we know what we have to do, and the views I expect will be magnificent. Goodbye, and thanks for all the fish."
I remember reading that.
Oh, that is a cool post.
Yeah. So he's going into the Rust language.
Yep.
And
Interesting.
probably, I mean, hey, look, the Crust library and the routing library that the SAFEnetwork are built on are being developed as open source. So I expect all sorts of distributed systems to grow on top of those, aside from just the SAFEnetwork. And so perhaps that's that's one really good reason to investigate Rust as well. Anyway, thank you, Daniel. That's a cool quote.
Yeah, I'm glad I read that.
Have you got anywhere where you can put that quote up as a link, Daniel? Because I'm sure Richard will want to read that quote.
I'm putting a post on the forum.
Cool.
Yeah, they're probably studying MateSafe's latest and realizing that there's plenty of design characteristics, and also the banking sector has applauded Rust as a amazing like it solves 90% of attacks or something like this. So
Wow.
yeah, that was from some consultant who was, how to say, shining sunshine up my ass about SAFEnetwork, and was talking about the Rust and being very sincere, because even though I turned down his offers, he still kept calling.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's
that banker's still trying to get you to work for him, huh?
Oh no, this is a long time ago.
Oh,
This
okay.
was not too long ago, but it was long enough ago that I call it too long ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The point to take from that is that we're doing things right. I think that Rust is all the right way to be, for real.
Yeah, man.
Way cool.
Yeah.
Hey, let's see. This is going to be posted, right? But probably only people who. I'm thinking of breaking something here. Nah. Anyway, yes, I'll tell you. I'll drop a hint. Safe Crossroads is going to have another episode soon, and it will continue to as appropriate. But I'm also preparing to launch a second podcast series on LTB Network called Technology and Choice. Just so you know.
Oh,
What's LPB?
Let's
talk Bitcoin Network.
Oh, okay.
That's where the Safe Crossroads podcast is mostly hosted. Anyway, this is looking at having a much broader reach in a lot of different directions, but it's taking a lot of work and preparation. I'm very excited about it, and I'm not sure what good it does, but I'm sharing it just because I can't help myself. I mean, it's very exciting. Think about it: technology and choice. Technology is, as I will be covering in the first podcast, by definition, technology is the purposeful application of information to do things, basically, whether products or organizing human activities. That covers a lot of tracks, not just high tech, new tech, modern tech. And choice is the most defining characteristic of an individual. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm really excited at the range of possibilities.
I was just thinking about the Safe Cross the other day, and how its name evokes, like, this is where you transform into the Safe Network. Like, how to get onto the Safe Network. And where else? On the Safe Crossroads.
Well,
There you go.
that was the idea. It was very. I had a hard time letting go of that, the crossroads concept and naming
But I mean,
my new one too, because
but
I
John,
love it.
what I'm trying to say is, it would be the ideal, I don't know what you call it. It would be like really cool to use to not use that, but to put the guidebook how to get on the Safe Network on the crossroads,
Oh yeah,
because that's the internet, and it's like it makes really good sense to learn about it from a site called the Safe Crossroads.
absolutely.
Yeah,
That's where I'm going to eventually be publishing the Simpleton's Guide to the Safe Network too.
yeah,
But
that's brilliant.
yeah, I'll need help on that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
David Yamanaka was mentioning also making like how to use it, how to use the Safe Network too. So like, and like I remember last year I definitely wanted to make tutorials. So I think we would be able to accomplish a lot because of the amount of minds and resources we are allocating to that process.
absolutely. No, I mean it's definitely. I think we're looking at collaborative efforts on all of this.
Well, can I just sort of like that leads really kind of like perfectly into, we were talking about the last ANTS meeting with Brady, and as you know, he's with these sessions, and this is the whole concept behind sessions, that you could do exactly what you were just speaking about in that collaborative process, and that's that's what I'm trying to say. That this is the very nature of where we go forward. Is we all come together and we collaborate in sort of thing. So yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. I don't know how everyone else feels, but there's so many. There's so many. Go on.
Yeah, I
Go
wanted
on,
to
David.
mention another thing. There's that new currency called Zero Cash, right? Did you see the post?
Yeah, Zed Cash.
I haven't heard of it.
I haven't boned up on Zero Cash.
So it's supposed to be an anonymous version of Bitcoin, kind of, and but the thing is that the way that they monetize it, there's investors, private investors, who do angel investments on a regular basis, and they're gonna throttle it for a percentage. I think it was 10%, but I can't quote me on that one. But anyway, they're gonna throttle a percentage out of the coin to the founding foundation. So what alarms me about that is that it's like an internal tax on the system, where while people use it, one organization is going to, for eternity, gather a fee
Right.
on it. So, and then I look at the Safe Network on the other hand, where the investors get 5% of the coins, but not more. It's not a throttle. It's just one-time lump sum payment. I mean,
Right.
and if you want to consider fairness, and decentralization for real, you can't consider having an eternal tax by the originating parties.
Absolutely.
That makes perfect sense to me, you know? Yeah. And it fascinates me that we actually have a model that makes a reasonable and sensible, how to say, like, because obviously you want to, there's a concept called slow money that I started reading about. It's like, you don't invest to make 100 times your money. You don't invest to make 1 trillion times what you invested for the rest of your life. because you can't even spend it, and no one can. And
Mhm.
so,
Right.
and it only causes problems. But you want to get what you put in and a little bit of risk offset for that contribution. Not 1,000 times, like for eternity. Like 1,000 times is even an understatement because it's an eternal tax. Whereas on the Safe Network, we just have it's like a payback. Simple, plain and simple. And then after that, there is no after that. It's just the process, right? Like, people invested, people got paid back, and life goes on. Whereas in the centralized version, such as like the zero coin description, there's an eternal tax because a few guys put $700,000 in.
Uh,
Mm.
You see,
Right.
like, how can
that's a
that
lot
be a
more than zero cash. I mean, that's yeah.
technology out of zero cash is worth it? But
Exactly, man.
But the model, what I'm arguing about is the model. That one is not the one. Like, it just can't be. And like, I feel
No
that we're fortunate
taxation
that
without
we're not.
representation.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I'll check on that. I haven't heard of zero cash.
it's on the forum. There's a thread called Cash.
Called what?
The thread is called Zcash.
Or for anybody, or
Yeah,
for
okay.
any,
Zero
or,
cash, I'm guessing. You keep chopping out whenever you say.
No,
Z
no.
as
I'm
in
actually
just the
saying
letter cash.
saying the word Zcash. I'm not cutting out.
no, I was just going to say, Daniel, for people over in England, that's Z cash.
But Tim just cut out, right?
Nope. Hello?
Hello?
I was just going to say, Daniel, for people over here, that's Z cash. We don't say the Z. It's Z cash, man.
Sounds like you're
Said
cutting out.
nil cash. Yeah, right. It does.
Cash.
Zcash.
Z cash.
Z cash. Okay.
Queen's English, my friend.
Mm. The last thing we need. There we go. Okay.
Perfect, man.
There are a lot of interesting things. Dash is, Darkcoin renamed Dash is looking promising itself as well, from what I've been checking out. So there's a lot going forward. It's real funny because all of the big money is chasing in to Bitcoin, and that's fine because it's got legs, but it's just gonna. I have a feeling it's just gonna end up being fertilizer for everything else
Mm-hmm.
as it decays.
That's a very good way of descriptive way of putting it there, John. Fertilizer. I mean, I
Yeah,
could
and
put
I don't mean anything
negative about it.
bad about Bitcoin that way. It's kind of
No.
like a whale on the beach is going to rot, and a lot of things are going to grow out of that.
Exactly. Yep. No, that was a perfect. That was a very. That I was about to say, John. That was a very polite way of putting it. Fertilizer. That's what I was going to say.
Well, and whatever happens, and I don't mean Bitcoin. I mean, may Bitcoin live forever
Mm.
if it merits it. But if it doesn't, we can't. You can't go, oh, it was a bad idea. No, it was great.
Steps along the way.
Great thing. Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, is there anything else anybody particularly wants to sort of raise while we're all here? I mean, I
Well,
only mentioned.
did I miss out arriving late? Did I miss out on any probing questions toward Daniel? Like, hey, Daniel, what you up to? Oh. Is it done yet?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm not
not to put any pressure, just curious.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it like like I'm scared of something,
You got a lot of work to do, but the way is clear.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
good.
actually, Actually, yes. As of today, the road is perfectly crystal clear.
The
Yeah.
what?
It took a it took a little bit of time um cash out coins and figure out where to go. I have a place to put my computer down and not move it for a little while, and
Right.
that's a recipe for a successful project.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you got your Arizona iced teas and your caviar in the fridge and ready to go?
Yeah.
Not just yet, but the logistics are have been sorted as of today.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
So
I
basically,
think I'll be able to
you
get
got to
started
report forward. You're getting
probably within the next 10 days. So what I'm what's probably going to happen is I'm going to distribute the coin and then get to work. That'll be like a milestone. Like the coin will
right.
be distributed, I'm settled, and I get to work. And people can trade the coin if they want.
Sure.
Like I would defer SafeX involvement until it's finished to trading the coin. How about that?
Yeah, you own it now. We own it now. We can do what we want
Right. Exactly.
until you're ready. Yeah, I mean, it might be. It's still not a bad idea to get a little, to get it spread around a little more.
So I think based on the survey that I have, people tell me things all the time about the SafeX coin, and so the survey is twofold. Some people can't wait to sell it, and others can't wait to buy it.
Perfect.
Uh,
Daniel, you cut out badly there, my friend.
Yeah, I lost you. Hear a blip every now and then, but
Daniel, you sound like you've just been swallowed into the void, my friend. I can't hear a word you're saying.
He's been digitized.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
blur, blur.
he's been he's leaving the matrix.
able to hear me?
Sure.
Gwen, did you-
No.
Probably
That's
gonna have to
bad.
disconnect and try again,
Yeah.
Daniel, or something.
Okay.
You gotta
Oh, there
get
you
an
are.
internet connection.
We
First
missed
things first.
we missed all of that, Daniel, so repeat, please.
Yeah. I'm chopping
Nope.
out
Don't
too.
hear a thing.
No.
Hey,
No.
take it down.
Looks like you've gone, Daniel. Never mind.
Take it down.
Well, hey, Daniel, he's got a plan.
He's got a
So,
plan. Yeah. So
oh
well,
yeah, that's interesting. I'm interested to hear what he had to say about the cross flow of people who can't wait to sell and those who can't wait to buy.
I hope we can get. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Hey,
Oh, there he is.
there
Picture and
he
He's
is.
all.
back.
Oh,
He's back. He's back. He's gone. He's back.
I'm here twice now. For some reason, the other screen isn't down. Somehow, it's here. I see two of my icons.
Yeah, we do too.
So which
Holy
one is
smokes,
Me
the
he's
too.
real
talking
one?
now.
Well,
I'm playing Pong.
the one that blinks when I speak, yes. But
Right.
but did you guys hear me? Because I
No.
realized like
No,
no. So I was
not at
saying
all.
about the survey, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was saying, pretty much half the folks tell me about the coin want to buy it, and the other half want to sell it.
That's
Or at
good.
least sell some of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. Actually, yes. Some people, so half want to sell some and half want to buy. So, so I guess that's cool.
That's the way to continue the spread. because that was your intention. That was the intentions to get it out there, get it into the hands of people. Because it's not really. I mean, I guess it could operate like a currency to some degree. It has that capability, but
yeah, exactly. So I was saying that one way of that's what we missed. What I was talking but it cut out is I was saying you get a dividend from the exchange. So owning the coin is one way to get into SafeCoin too, effectively.
owning the
How
coin
is
is
that?
one. Because you get a % of farming rewards from the SafeX.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So it was actually a couple of SafeX coin holders who suggested that they want more SafeX coin because they feel that it will have a good value beyond what was paid for at the crowd sale.
Yes.
So
Right.
if people were eager to sell, then and the price is still decent, those folks who are eager to buy, would still be eager to buy. You see what I mean?
Right. Right.
And I could see that their gaming attitude would be not to spend at the crowd sale, which would cause us to spend more at the sale, rather to let the crowd sale resolve and then purchase them on the exchange afterwards. And it's probably the correct strategy. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna hold. I'm not. I'm holding all that I got. I tell you,
Yeah.
I
Um,
didn't get. I didn't get nearly enough because I didn't have the money. But I'm holding all that I got.
but in retrospect, like, I mean, I'm glad that I launched the crowd sale, and I'd be glad to have bought them, you know what I mean? Like, in like during the crowd sale, maybe skepticism could step in, but then after it, it's like I definitely would have wished I had some, like
Right.
because like the purchase price is just way too low to have not chipped in to get some coin. Like, forget about like it's just too worth it. One person found out about the sale 12 hours before it was over, and they told me something like, I missed out on too many of these coin offerings that winded up being worth way more than what they were sold for. And he said that he refuses to be part of that crowd or get that feeling that he's going to miss out on a coin offering. And he said any project with a good founder, he's backing it with something. That's what he told. I was like, yeah, I was so glad to hear that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool, bud. Perfect.
Yeah, so I
But
think that would be the milestone. It would put the stake in the ground that, all right, development is now on. Here's the coins. Enjoy. And like, yeah, hang on to them.
yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, perfect, people. I'll tell you what. I mean, we've done. I'm only saying this because it's nearly 20 to 3 my time in the morning here. So, is anything particular of that's anyone wants to raise or feel free, because if not, we can just wrap this up.
Well, thanks for hosting us, Tim.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah. I'm glad to have made it this one. I've missed a few and I've been splattered around.
Well, like I said before, keep an eye out for your new podcast. When are you hoping to sort of drop this? I mean, I know you sort of already said, John, but when are you hoping to sort of get this out? What, in the next few weeks or?
Hopefully, yeah. I've got. I'll be recording a Safe Crossroads podcast Tuesday. I don't know when it'll go out, but sometimes in the next week or so, I'll have that, and then probably following up within a week or so after that, I'll have the first podcast of the new series. I mean,
Fantastic.
I'm working hard to really understand the scope of where I'm going and open up a few avenues so that I don't, so that I can move forward and not too frantic away. The scope of this could be huge. I'm hoping to draw in other content creators who could, I don't know, if y'all have ever heard, well, anyway, like Planet Money or some of the U.S. National Public Radio stuff. There's some really good stuff there that I would like to get contributions from others and have it, because the area I'm looking at is vast. It's huge and it's very, very pertinent. But it's basically it's a philosophical approach to technology. So anyway, so yes, within a few weeks we'll have that one out too.
Perfect. Well, the other thing is, I really want to fly the flag because I know Brady's put a lot of effort into this, and I really do think it's going to, again, one of these another step towards. But keep an eye out for the sessions, and like I say, if you've got anything you want to, like even you, John, I mean, you were saying earlier on, Daniel, anything that you need, you need bits and pieces for. Like I say, if you've got, I need someone to do this or whatever. Just this is our ideal sessions, but again, and with all these projects, and it's all about spreading the word. So let's all help each other out, spread the word, because we're all pushing the same, the same snowball down the same hill, aren't we? So we can.
Yeah. Hey Tim, I've got a question. If I have missed quite a number of the ANTS meetings. Am I missing something in terms of what Brady's doing?
Sorry, it's going to be called the sessions, and basically what sessions is when. And again, I'll put a link in on the link tonight with the on the forum. But we did a pod on it last week. And sessions is basically where we're going to have, using the Google Hangouts and some of the tools available, coming along and people contributing during the like an ANTS meeting, but during the time we have in the session where he will write a song and someone else will do a bit of code, and then everybody that contributes will get rewarded for it through various Bitcoin wallets and stuff. It's a very kind of new project. We've got a website out which I'll put up, but it's a brave new world, and Brady, it's something Brady's had for a concept he's had for a while, and we sort of like formed together, and it's a sort of step into the world of trying to get, which is what the whole sort of like ask of this conversation was being, even from the very beginning when I was asking David about it, is trying to get as many people on it who not only use the Safe Network but contribute to it. And I think it's one of the, just another step and another tool towards getting people on and getting used to contribute and being rewarded for their contribution. So that's just another exciting project, and like I say, it's a start of a very it's going to be a journey, so it's going to be that's what I'm saying, it's all new.
Fabulous. I'll check out the links.
Fantastic. Like I say, well, I mean, man, it's been, as ever, it's been great to catch up with everyone tonight, and like I say, I'll keep an eye out for your new project, what you're doing there, John, and
I'll trumpet it. You'll know.
Perfect. And like I say, well, I can't say anything more really, apart from keep warm. And I was saying to you before we went live tonight, man, with this doomsday storm that's apparently going to be hitting you lot, the next day. So if you are in the way of that storm, man, keep safe. If not, well, I want to speak to you when we speak to you, man. But from me in Scotland, man, on this fine cold night, it's life is people.
Take care.
All right, good night.